Well, hello there. I am back to help assure that you can OD on some complexity and nuance. It's easy to declare that each form of government is, in fact, a method of holding people in subjection as an oppressed class or a struggling class or whatever. And sure enough, there are many occasions where that definitely appears to be true. However, does that really do every situation and scenario justice? I don't wish to sound like Mr. Counter Revolutionary here, but I've always been just as skeptical of the will of the people as I am of the will of any ruler, because I know that people in general are flawed. So it's not like people power is some perfect inherent solution to, the global problems that we're currently faced with. If you believe in the near infallible collective will of the people, just because the will of rulers is flawed and often evil, then I urge you to critically examine your own logic and examine the underlying problems of our current system and of human history. Obviously, it's not perfect. Just as a great leader is not always an expert on a subject, never forget that the teeming masses of people give these despotic sharks oceans of power to swim in the first place. You can hit the shark in the eyes and gills to deflect its attack, but the people are ultimately like the water that supports the predators to begin with, providing the life support for them, making sure they can dominate and all of that fun stuff. Even giving them material rewards and all that. Fortunately, I think there are ways of preventing too many sharks from taking over too much of the human ocean, so to speak, and a lot of those fall under the collective banner of democracy. And the term democracy is very general and broad ranging. The term is derived from the Greek demokratia, which I'm probably mispronouncing. But that comes from demos, which is people, and kratos, which is rule. Rule by the people, of course. It refers to various forms of government, which usually have a parliament or a popular will as their goal. But the need for a strong and stable central government is also often a key factor in nearly all of these forms of government. Sorry, I'm kind of messing up when I'm talking. But anyway, you know, uh, a lot of lists of democratic tendencies would frequently underexamine the concept of democracy that is more direct, a direct democracy, or rule by the people without representatives or, a special type of ruler. Of course, direct democracy itself has its share of dangers, as it has some of the same features as so called representative democracy, and it can always be corrupted or, simply eroded in some way. And the problem isn't just big government or federal overreach when it comes to a lot of issues, even though conservatives so often like to say that. After all, historically, when racists would go on about the importance of states' rights against federal government overreach, 9 times out of 10, what they lament are the times that the federal government stepped in and told states and local governments that they could not discriminate, either against people of color or, the LGBT community or any number of groups that might be marginalized, including just immigrants, and that includes in some cases even European immigrants, believe it or not. Um, Bigots don't like to be told what to do, especially if it means the bigots can't tell others what to do and they cannot feel superior to them, especially in some official capacity. And, they're less able to kick the scapegoated and hated groups around if the federal government or really some other uh, either arm of government or form of control ends up placing limits on bigotry. At the same time, yes, of course, there's also abuse by the federal government, including sometimes racist abuse, of course. So there is no 100% foolproof path here, unfortunately. What is needed is a culture of democracy to protect against abuses of power. If you've got the culture in place, it doesn't matter as much, even if there are oppressive laws on the books, as you can find even in various states throughout the country. There are definitely some outdated laws that have been on the books for many years here and there, and you might read about them in some newspapers or online or whatever. Some outdated, crazy laws that nobody even adheres to. And in Michigan, we actually got rid of one of those. I believe it was the abortion law, or the law that completely tried to ban abortion. And, that was considered outdated by a number of Michiganders. Were it not for some protections and a culture that believes in them, non white people in America would still exist to serve a white master race, you know, on this national stage, I guess you might say. I mean, that's how things were for hundreds of years. Then again, some people out there will say, but aren't we past that point in history? Isn't racism largely in the past? Not really. In fact, there are so many different dimensions of racism, one of which may be the very myth that it is only in the past. I mean, look at it this way: the Loving versus Virginia case was not very long ago at all, and that was the Supreme Court decision that made it illegal for individual states to ban interracial marriage. And, we're an American people with a long and convoluted history. After the Declaration of Independence proclaimed that all men are created equal, it didn't just become that way, because those magic words were uttered. It really took a long time for that to become more true. At the time that the Declaration of Independence was created, the government really did not only declare certain men equal, but women weren't declared equal. It was really just for white men of property who were considered equal under the law. The history is still available for anyone who wants to learn it, and it's a really long, winding road. You can even look up local history and find out how racism or other problems may have revealed themselves in your neck of the woods. Some crazy things probably happened that you're not even aware of. Not that we have to understand it all. We choose to attempt to understand it for ourselves, usually in digestible chunks, until we can't choke the disgusting bits down anymore. Either that, or if you're like a lot of people, you never bother looking into the stuff much at all. You feel no obligation to do it, no responsibility. Maybe it makes you feel bad, maybe guilty, and all that kind of stuff. However, at the same time, history does offer glimpses, even occasional strong glares into powerful wins. Points where the human race actually noticeably advanced beyond a previous point. It met a milestone, leapt over some obstacles like a skilled athlete in a moment of triumph, because it pays to take the good with the bad. You have to not just look at the negative aspects of history, even though there is a temptation to do that, because those are in some ways almost the more interesting parts. But, it pays to look at some of the better things that have happened as well. Some of the obstacles that have been kicked aside, so to speak. Also, it pays sometimes to try to set your emotions aside, at least just a little bit, even if you're normally a sensitive person, just to look at some of these issues, you know, um, more from a purely intellectual standpoint. It can be done, I think, by most people. It just needs some discipline. At the same time, don't switch off your emotions completely to the point of numbness. You don't want that either. I mean, it's a it's a tricky thing to find the right level of emotionality and all that kind of stuff when you're looking at either history or current events. But as Albert Einstein once said, any fool can know, the point is to understand. So you can't let your feelings 100% dominate, you know, how you see the world and how you react to the world. There's just not much wisdom in doing that. So really, that's about all I have to say about stuff for now. Just sort of a philosophical um, episode, I suppose. And I would say that America is often about individualism, and I respect that to an extent. Sure, you can dismiss rugged individualism as a myth, but it's a tantalizing myth, and there are still elements of truth to it sometimes. We can try to be independent and can most likely succeed and feel strong on some occasions. However, don't let that fool you. Some independent streaks don't mean we won't occasionally need a helping hand or two from those willing to stand in solidarity with us and to help bring out the best in us. So, all right, have a nice day.